In the East Roman Empire, there had been Christological controversies raging for a long time. In fact, since Constantine's wonderful move of appropriating Christianity to legitimate the state, there had been ideological or controversies which were stated in Christological format. That is, what is the relationship of Jesus Christ to God the Father, basically. And Bishop Arius had said, if you take a divine element and you take a human element and pour them together, the mixture is less than divine. So Jesus Christ is of a lesser nature than God the Father. And that became the Arian heresy, which was condemned at the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea in 325. And after that, other expressions of difference of opinion about the exact nature of Jesus Christ raged. And modern historians usually say, well, all those people were stupid, and these were all idiotic differences of hair splitting, which mean absolutely nothing to modern Christians, so why bother over them? Well, historically, in those days, it mattered plenty. And it wasn't necessarily so much because of the actual details of the thoughts involved, as it was a geographical conflict that eventually came to be stated in national terms. So you found in Egypt, especially, the granary of the Byzantine or East Roman Empire, this opposition. And the Egyptians developed what is called the Alexandrian Christology, and that Christology influenced all of subsequent Christianity, in effect. The Alexandrian Christology strongly insisted on the full divinity of Jesus Christ. And eventually it went to the extent in some of its more extreme forms of neglecting the humanity of Christ considerably. For example, the Coptic Church has in its liturgy, "Who died for our sins," meaning God died. Because when the sacrifice on the cross happened, according to them, the crucifixion, God died on the cross. Because if a human is sacrificed, what can that do? Since lots of human beings have been crucified and died or been executed or martyred, and what did that do? That can't have any power to save humankind. It had to be God himself dying and sacrificing himself. And this all went back to a lot of connections with the ancient Egyptian religion that made it easy to swallow for people in Egypt, but not elsewhere. And the patriarchs of Alexandria sailed north 4 times and humiliated the Greeks. In 325 at Nicaea, when Alexander humiliated Arius. In 403, when Theophilus humiliated and deposed John Chrysostom, the Patriarch of Constantinople, whose picture is in all the Greek Orthodox churches to this day, who is sort of viewed as almost a martyr and victim of the Copt in that case. In 431, where Cyril of Alexandria, in collaboration with Empress Pulcheria, proclaimed the 14 anathemas against Nestorius and his followers. And in 449 at the Latrocinium, or the Robber Council of Ephesus, which was not, as you can tell from its name, considered a canonical council by the church afterwards, in which the Patriarch of Constantinople was beaten up and died of his wounds, and the messengers of the Roman Pope hid in the cupboard, while the Patriarch of Antioch was deposed, and Eutychianism, which proclaimed the doctrine that Jesus Christ was pure God, was proclaimed for a couple of years. But 2 years later, after the emperor had fallen off his horse and broken his spine, and his sister came back to power, Pulcheria, by the way, who is a woman that you haven't, how many of you have heard of Empress Pulcheria before? Empress Pulcheria is one of the most important women in history. Empress Pulcheria is the first woman ever to assert political power on the basis of her sex instead of in spite of it. Because if women, as John Chrysostom was saying, were the servants of the devil, were evil, wicked temptresses and were weak-willed and full of sin, then if a woman, by demonstrating her similarity to the Virgin Mary and preserving her virginity and making a lot of public relations about it because she was the empress, could demonstrate her purity in spite of the weakness of women, then she was better than all the men. And that's what she did. And in 451, she and her, the commander of the guard whom she made into her husband, although she didn't give up her virginity, it was just a pro forma marriage, who was Emperor Marcian, they called the Council of Chalcedon together, at which the doctrine of the Chalcedonians was stated, which is, at least in theory, the doctrine of 98% of the Christians today. Jesus Christ is fully God and fully human, of two natures united in one person, neither mixed nor separated. Because if you had a mixture, then you had Jesus was less than God the Father, and you had the Arian heresy. And if you had a separation, then you have to know when Jesus is speaking as a human and as divine, and you have something like the two-nature heresy of Antioch, the Nestorian heresy. And that did not go down well in Egypt and Syria, and their attempts to establish their own form of Christianity in 2 centuries by the time of the Prophet Muhammad led to an almost state of open revolt against the Roman Empire. So that there is extreme dislike in those provinces of the Roman Empire. And the Coptic historians say in their histories that the Ishmaelites came to deliver us from the heretics. So they didn't mind the Muslims coming in and delivering them from the heretics at first. And in the Sasanian Empire in Iraq, somewhat the same situation existed. A very large non-Zoroastrian population of Iraq, which was mostly Christian and Jewish, was dominated by Zoroastrian Iranians from the plateau. And because of the close combination of the church and state in Iran, the Zoroastrian religion was not popular with the people either, and they deserted it in droves and became Muslims. So anyway,